to our voters forum. The forum will last approximately 30 minutes and will cover ballot measure 92, mandating the labeling of genetically engineered foods. I am your moderator, Dr. Deborah Frick, with the League of Women Voters of Portland. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that works to help citizens make informed choices in elections. We do not endorse any candidates, nor any political parties, nor any positions at forums, but rather we give the public the information they need to be informed voters. Membership information is available on our website and at the table at the back of the room. We thank the Loma Bar Foundation, Neil Kelly Design, and Paloma Clothing for their generous contributions to our education fund to make these forums possible. Today's forum is being recorded by our media partner, MetroEast Community Media. Okay, now to our forum. To discuss Measure 92, we are joined today by Rick North of Measure 92 Steering Committee and Rebecca Tweed of the No on 92 Coalition. Our forum will consist of opening statements followed by different types of questions, and then we'll have some closing statements. For each round of questions, I'll rotate the respondents, so there's not going to be one person answering first all the time. And questions directed to one side, if that happens, certainly the other side will have a chance to rebut. Okay? And members of the audience are invited to pose questions to send them in on a 3x5 card, and raise your hand with that card for our volunteers to collect them. Timekeepers are sitting in the first row, and they will signal and give you a 30-second warning on your 7-minute presentation you each will have, and then when the stop sign goes up, we will cut you off with a very hopefully nice big thank you, okay? So let us begin. Mr. North, would you like to begin? You have 7 minutes.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting us. My name is Rick North. Just a few words on why I'm here. My background, most of my career had been with the American Cancer Society. I worked with them for 21 years, the last 5 as the state director for Oregon. Before I retired 3.5 years ago, I also worked for the Oregon Physicians for Social Responsibility for 7.5 years as a director of their campaign for safe food, in which we took on the issues of genetically engineered foods. And I'm a volunteer. When this measure came along, I got the call and I asked to be a volunteer for this, and I absolutely said yes, and that's why I'm here. Why we're doing this, it's very simple. We think we have a right to know what's in our food. And right now, 64 other countries around the world already are labeling. And American food corporations are already labeling their food as genetically engineered when they export these foods to these countries, and they're doing it without any increase in costs to the consumers in those countries. We just feel if they can label for them, they should be able to label for us. Why? Why do consumers want labeling? And many, many do, over 90% on various polls. Health and environmental reasons come up, and it's been said many times that, well, by the opposition, there's no controversy, there's a consensus that GMO foods are safe. Now, there's a big gap here between demonstrated safe and demonstrated harmful. There's a big middle ground of there are real questions whether they're safe or not, whether they've been proven harmful or not. And there is no consensus that they're safe at all. And I can give you a number of organizations that are saying we're not really sure because the testing hasn't been done. They include the Union of Concerned Scientists, the Physicians for Social Responsibility. By the way, I'm not a doctor. I want to mention that. Just to clarify, I'm not a doctor or scientist, but I just work with them all the time. Union of Concerned Scientists, Physicians for Social Responsibility, American Academy of Environmental Medicine, the European Network of Scientists for Social and Environmental Responsibility, the British Medical Association, who said, quote, there are many unanswered questions remain. Safety concerns cannot be dismissed. Even the AMA, which the opposition often says, well, the AMA says they're safe. Well, they've also, if you look closer at what they've said, they have cited heightened allergenicity and toxicity as real possibilities. And they revised its statement recently to say they think the safety testing should be mandatory and not voluntary. What a lot of people don't know, the FDA does not do any safety testing. It doesn't require any independent testing. The only safety testing done is by the same corporations that produce these foods, the ones that stand to profit. And in the FDA's own words, and I quote, ultimately, it is the food producer who is responsible for assuring safety. This is the very definition of a conflict of interest, and that is our current regulatory system in the United States. We are the only country out of the developed ones that does not require mandatory safety testing before they go on the market. Environmentally, you've all heard, I think, that Roundup, the most commonly used herbicide for GMO crops, has been killing off a lot of monarch butterflies. The basic effect of all this pesticide use, all this tremendous increase in herbicide use has been we have more herbicides and pesticides wind up on our dinner plates. And for environmentalists, this is a really serious issue. Now, you may agree or disagree with me, others like that. The main point is, if you agree or disagree, this is for everybody. It gives everybody the right to know and make more informed decisions. Farmers has come up, the question of farmers. Is it going to help them, hurt them? I can tell you this, there are over 220 different agricultural products in Oregon. Only 4 of them are genetically engineered. About 38,000 farms. The vast majority of them don't have anything to do with GMO crops and would not be affected by this bill or this initiative at all. And when it comes to farmers, even the small minority of ones that do, all they have to do, that do genetically engineering, all they have to do is tell their processors that their crops are genetically engineered, or if they're selling directly to grocery stores, mark their bags or crates that they're genetically engineered. That's it. There is little or no cost at all. And there is specific protection for farmers in this initiative that if they happen to get accidentally, not through no fault of their own, contamination of their crops by a genetically engineered crop, they cannot be held liable at all. They don't have to do any extra testing. They don't have to worry about any legal charges against them. Exemptions you've heard about, well, it's not covering meat and dairy. Well, meat and dairy is not covered because the animals are not genetically engineered. This is not an exemption, it just doesn't qualify. Eating genetically engineered feed doesn't make them genetically engineered, just like for us, eating genetically engineered food doesn't make us genetically engineered. So they're off the table to begin with. For the location-based ones, like restaurants, cafeterias, bake sales, all we're doing is following the same protocols that have been in place for nearly 25 years. If it's not required to be labeled now, our initiative would not require it. If it is required to be labeled now, our initiative would require it to be labeled genetically engineered. That's it. We are seamlessly integrating this measure right into the existing system that we've all been familiar with for years as far as what requires labeling, what doesn't. Costs. Costs, I'm going to say, as Consumers Union has said, this is going to cost an average person about $2.30 increase per year. I trust Consumers Union. I'm sorry, I do not trust the other hundreds of dollars in estimates from industry, from their industry-funded studies. In short, we believe we have a right to know what's in our food. And this is what we hope that voters will agree to come November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, now we are going to hear from the opposing side. Ms. Tweed.
Good evening. Thank you very much for having me here, and actually having both of us here. Rick and I are best friends by now. Maybe after, November 5th, we'll get that cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But I do really appreciate you being here. I know this is an important issue for many people. It's an important issue to me. If you ask anybody that knows me, they will tell you I'm a picky eater. It's just a natural part of my life. It's also one that I've made a choice of. I'm a vegan. For anybody who doesn't know what that means, it means I'm crazy. It also means that I don't consume any food products or use any products that have any animal product in them. So I'm sure, as you can imagine, that requires quite a bit of label reading on my behalf, down to gum, down to candy, down to toothpaste, down to what kind of blush I use. Sometimes a little too much, maybe tonight, it's for the cameras. So labeling makes a big difference in my life every single day. So when I first heard about this measure, I thought, absolutely, I am a yes. Nobody is going to change my mind. Then I decided to read the measure, and I realized how much it doesn't make sense and how much information is not in it, given the name of it is Right to Know. I believe that Measure 92 is misleading, and that it doesn't have the information in it that Oregonians are looking for. And I think we deserve a better measure to give us information that we're looking for in the foods that we consume. It's an unnecessary measure, it's an inconsistent measure, and it is an expensive measure. And we will talk about safety. I think that's something everybody should talk about, and I think that's very important in relation to this conversation. It's not important in relation to what this measure does. Let's go to why it's unnecessary. An average grocery store, not a health food shop, not a fancy food shop, nothing expensive, a regular Safeway, Albertsons, Fred Meyer's, carries about 70,000 products. Under federal standards that we have in place right now that apply across every country, every state, every Safeway in Oregon, every Safeway in Montana, down to Safeways in Florida, all have to follow the same standards in order for food to be labeled organic or non-GMO. Out of that 70,000 products in your average store, 20,000 of them already qualify for a label that tells us something's organic or non-GMO. I drink this every day. I'm going to give Rick a shipment of these after the campaign's over. It says on it, organic, non-GMO. I get it at Safeway. It costs less than a Starbucks. That's already there for us. It's an unnecessary measure to apply just to Oregon. Let's talk about how it's inconsistent. The exemptions matter a little bit, but let's talk about the fact that this measure, under this measure, the way that it's worded, foods that do not have GMO in them will have to be labeled, and foods that have been produced with any sort of GE, genetic engineering, or GMO process will not have to. Now, you can exempt dairy and beef by saying that the cow doesn't become genetically engineered, but actually, because of this measure, that one exemption undermines the federal standard. Right now, if you go get meat, there's a standard in place that says this cow was not fed genetically modified organism feed. There's a standard that will tell you that when you go buy your meat. Under Measure 92, grocers won't have to do that anymore. Manufacturers won't have to do that anymore. If you don't want to eat meat or dairy that's been produced with, or has been fed with GMO feed, you won't have the option to know that under this measure. That's one inconsistency. The other one is that this doesn't apply across the board the same way that other nutrition facts apply. Go back to Safeway, right after you buy your juice, go to aisle 5 and there's a bag of chips or a bag of popcorn. That will have to be labeled with GMO or genetically engineering if any of that food or that process has been part of that production of that food. Again, just in Oregon. Go across a different state line, that label won't have to be there. So just in Oregon, you walk to the cafeteria side of that Safeway and get a small bag of chips or popcorn or crackers to go, that doesn't have to be labeled. Apparently, the convenience of having food ready to go means you don't need to know what's in it. That's written into this measure. They had the option to say everything has to be labeled, but they took out alcohol, which is almost across the board produced with some sort of GMO or genetically engineering to it. They've taken out meat and dairy that has been given genetically engineered feed. They've taken out food to go, food in restaurants, food in cafeteria, food at a convenience store, food at the gas station. None of that has to be labeled even though the product's the same. However, if you look at a box of sugar, sugar from a sugar beet is genetically engineered in the process of them taking the protein out of it. Once you get to the actual sugar, the stuff we use to bake, the stuff we use to cook with and sprinkle around, none of that has any GMO or GE in it. It will tell you on the package that there's 0% protein, But because during the process of getting you that sugar, they took it out, that's considered genetic engineering, that would have to be labeled. So now you're getting something that doesn't have GMO in it, but it's going to have that label. But you stop and you get a bag of chips on your way out of the grocery store, stop and get some steak, doesn't have to be labeled. To me, it's just inconsistent, and that doesn't make sense to me. So that's not giving me information that I want to know. If they did that with vegan products, I'd be very confused. If I'm in one aisle and they tell me that this does not have any animal product in it, but then I buy the to-go version and I don't know, that doesn't help. The other issue that makes this different than federal standards in place for nutrition facts is when you look at nutrition facts, it tells you 5% fat, 172 calories, 27 ingredients. The GMO label in this measure will not have to tell you what ingredients GMO or how much of the product you're purchasing is GMO. So you get a big fat sticker on your food, a whole new box, a whole new jar, whatever it is, has to be remanufactured and labeled with the GMO inclination on it, and it's produced with any or partially produced, any amount of GMO and GE goes into it, goes into the processing of it, will have to have some sort of stamp on it, some sort of sticker on it. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Now, it is expensive. There are a lot of different ways you can look at how the expenses are. Now, I tend to trust studies from states that have tried to pass this initiative, from the Department of Administrative Services, from Cornell, from UC Berkeley, that tell us this will increase grocery costs for $400 to $500 a year per family. This could cost taxpayers $7 million a year. Even the European Union has said costs have gone up. We just haven't finished getting those numbers because we haven't fully understood the impact of GMO labeling in the European Union. Every single person that's done this or has had some sort of labeling law in states, in countries, says that it increased costs.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to have the two of you ask some questions of each other. Okay, and how it's going to work is that I'm sure you were writing some notes, you know, and some things probably came in your mind when.
Just a few, yeah.
Just a few.
I am.
And so, please, we'll give you about 10 seconds to formulate a question, or it may be right there to your opponent, so to speak, Ms. Tweed, and she'll have 2 minutes to answer your question. your
Okay,
thoughtful
so
question.
it's just one question?
Just one question right now.
Okay.
Okay? And then she's going to have 2 minutes to answer, and then you're going to have 1 minute to rebut. Then we're going to switch gears. You're going to ask him a question, okay? And
Okay.
we'll go back and forth. All right. What's your question?
Okay. I'm sorry, what?
The question is not
Yeah.
timed. The response is 2 minutes?
Okay.
Do you want a 30-second or 15-second?
Well, 15-second warning, I think, would be good. Thank you
Oh,
so
sure.
much. Okay, so please ask your question.
Okay. The No campaign is running an ad on TV featuring a woman identified as a wheat farmer. And she says, among other things, quote, "We've never seen anything that would hurt farmers like Measure 92." And also, quote, "be forcing farmers to spend millions." I've already said the vast majority of farmers in Oregon don't have anything to do
No,
with
wait.
genetic. Oh, just ask the question.
This is a
Okay.
question,
Okay.
not a statement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, she said this, and Measure 92, there is no genetically engineered wheat.
What is your
in Oregon.
question?
Okay.
Thank you.
My question is, on a scale of 1 to 10 for truthfulness, with 10 being completely truthful and 1 not being truthful at all, how would you rate this campaign ad?
How would I rate the
The
campaign?
campaign ad?
I would say it's 10. It's truthful. If there's a farmer in Oregon that's telling me that this is going to have an impact on the farming industry in Oregon, I have to listen to that. Now, whether what she's farming or what her farm farms is organic, non-GMO, something that's genetically engineered in Oregon or outside of Oregon, the reason that we have brought her to the table, or that she actually came to us, is because farmers are a family, they're a group of people, and they understand that one piece of legislation, one initiative can affect all of them. And what's the next step? So I'm not sure, because you didn't get to it, what part of it that you're questioning, but I stand behind the people that have come out to say that they're no. I stand behind the farmers in Oregon that have come out to say that they're no. We have over 33,000 represented in our coalition. Oregon Farm Bureau, Marion County Farm Bureau, we have 15 different farm bureaus that represent tons of farmers across the board that have said, this is damaging to farmers. It will cost us money. It will cost our friends money. It affects people all the way down to farmers markets that sell retail. They don't want it. I don't have to eat meat to not want things that affect people that eat meat to not pass in Oregon. I can still care about what's going on for Oregonians. And I think that having a farmer come out and say that this is damaging and will cost them millions, I'm not a farmer, but I can't afford a new tractor. I can't afford a separate farm system. Even if she is not producing that particular product, she understands what it means to be a farmer. And I think that she understands that Measure 92 will increase costs, will increase paperwork, will increase government bureaucracy on farms across the board in Oregon. So I stand behind her.
Thank you, Rebecca. Rick, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I felt, you're starting to go into another part of your presentation in a way. But you have a chance now to rebut what was just said.
Okay.
You have 1 minute.
Yeah. There is no such thing as genetically engineered wheat. It has never been approved. There's not a single wheat farmer in Oregon that produces this. And in terms of the farmers who completely disagree, I can give you quite a list here. The Family Farm Defenders, the United Farm Workers, Friends of Family Farms, Oregon Rural Action, numerous granges throughout Oregon. There isn't a single grange that has come out against this. All of them are in favor of Measure 92, every single one. Again, the vast majority of farmers, the vast majority, don't even have anything to do with this. It would not affect them at all. No increased cost whatsoever. So please, I've talked with numerous farmers over the last weeks, and they think it's laughable that they're going to have to buy a new tractor because of this labeling bill.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, thank you. Now, it's your turn, Rebecca, to ask your question.
Sure, thank you. For the cost report memo that recently came out, I think it was 2 weeks ago from EcoTrust, I lose track of days. For the cost report memo, the yes side specifically instructed the researchers not to look at any other cost than the actual printing of the label. When you know that the costs for Measure 92 go far beyond that to increase costs of food supply chains and require food companies to separately handle and package and reproduce products just for Oregon, don't you think that, this is the question, don't you think that having a report done specifically only on one minor part of the cost is deceptive, and then releasing that saying the costs are only going to be $2.30 and not address any of the other costs related to the measure?
No, I don't think it's I think the report came from Consumers Union, the one that Rebecca is referring to. Consumers Union is Consumer Reports. This is the nonprofit, unbiased organization that we have known and trusted for decades. They commissioned Econ Northwest, which is a very respected economic analysis firm in Portland, to do this for them. And what they studied was the cost of the labels themselves, which are virtually nothing because companies every year or two typically redo their labels anyway. And then they took it to, would this go into the food chain? Where is it going? And the cost of the labeling itself. So what's going to happen when this occurs? Well, what's going to happen to the vast majority of farmers? Absolutely nothing. The ones that do, the ones that actually have to label for their processors or grocery stores, again, it's virtually nothing. So there's nothing to pass along. In terms of the food chain or food supply chain, let's suppose in the very small minority numbers of farmers in Oregon, you've got them producing, say, for both GMO and non-GMO food processors. Well, in order to do that, the supply chains are already in place. They are just using what is already there because they've already had to do this. So there doesn't have to be any change in supply chains for this. There's nothing like that at all. And in terms of the costs, suppose they, when a labeling goes into effect, just because a processor made Ben & Jerry's, Cheerios, Grape Nuts, they have all gone non-GMO in the past year. None of them have increased cost to consumers
Thank
at
you.
all.
Yeah, I was just informed that we're running out of time tonight with our television team. So we're going to stop the conversation at this point. I think that there was a lot of great information that was presented.
I think we should let Ms. Swede rebut that last.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I don't have much to say. That's okay. In the draft, the beginning of the report that came out, it actually says, and I should have brought a copy, but I have enough paper. It actually says we did not look at anything else besides the cost to labeling. That's what your report says from Consumer Union. Now, if we want to talk about costs from third-party groups, I don't know what studies you're seeing that are being done by the people that have funded our side of the campaign, because I haven't seen any. What I'm looking at is the Citizens Initiative Review Panel that says the costs of actual labeling are a tiny fraction of the costs of compliance and certification. The bulk of private costs arise in segregation among products. The State Legislative Revenue Office and the Department of Administrative Services and the EU, but I'll save that one, have come out in the last 3 months and said costs include tracking, sorting, separating genetically modified ingredients. Consumer producer responses and additional costs are expected to increase overall food prices. I'll save you the numbers. Those are third-party people. The Legislative Revenue Office is saying this will cost money.
Thank you. All right, well, this will conclude our forum, and this is extremely interesting topic. Thank you so much.
so-
It's so wonderful to hear two experts. And what we will be doing is concluding this now, our Measure 92 portion of tonight's forum. We've run out of time, as we were saying about the television. And we thank you both so much. Incredible, the information you both have. And, please check our website at lwvpdx.org to view all of our forums on demand and for the replay dates and times and channels for local access cable TV. Please pick up the League of Women Voters Guide here. It's in print, and at your local library. Online, you can check at vote411.org for a preview of your own personal ballot. Election Day is November 4th. As in all Oregon elections, you will receive a mail-in ballot. Ballots must be mailed back early or delivered to any official drop-off site in Oregon no later than 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 4th. Postmarks do not count. This is Dr. Deb Frick for the League of Women Voters of Portland. Please be an informed voter. And remember, it's your vote that counts. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for our wonderful timekeepers and volunteers. Thank you. Thank you.